The following is Section 2 of Part 1, entitled Non-Contradiction and Self-Evident First Truths. When we propose something as self-evident, we mean that the predicate, or that which we are proposing, is contained in the subject, or that about which we are proposing. For instance, when we say that a rose is a flower. So those principles mentioned in Section 1 are kinds of rules or laws that govern every accurate thought and judgment which we may have, since every succeeding truth is in some way contained in these first principles. And these principles are not subject to any demonstration, which means that we don't arrive at them, rather we begin with them in order to arrive at a certitude regarding all other knowledge, as all true knowledge comes by way of conclusions drawn from these principles. That is because these are the starting points for everything we know and every judgment we make. We do not need to prove them any more than we would need to prove that we exist, nor can we prove such things, nor do they require proof, since nothing is more obvious than they are. So we must begin with them in order to prove everything else. It is obvious that if someone were to deny his own existence, then there would be no possibility for him to proceed further to assert anything else, since he would eliminate the unavoidable starting point from which he could go on to know anything, or to propose anything as known. Therefore, we must always return to these first principles to examine what we hold as true, in order to establish if that meets the standard set by these irrefutable principles. If what we maintain deviates from that standard, then we are bound by it to abandon our presumptions and continue searching for that which is correctly derived from that standard, because propositions can only hold if the conclusions coming from them are sound. If one were to dispute whether a glass is half empty or half full, he is admitting the standard of the glass itself, or the dispute would be pointless. This becomes apparent if one wrongly professes that when saying something is not, it is the same as saying that it is, because that is like saying that nothing can be the same as something, and that is as though one were declaring that nothing is something, or that the words nothing and something have the same meaning. But when we say that something is, we are saying that it cannot not be, or that it is not nothing, for opposites cannot be the same. For example, when we speak of eyesight and blindness, we are referring to opposites in that the former is something, and the latter refers to its privation. So when we speak of blindness, we don't mean something that has existence, but we are referring to the absence of that which ought to be, but is not. When we say that blindness is, we only mean to say that eyesight is not. For this reason, we don't say that stones are blind, for that would suggest that they are deprived of sight, as though they should have it naturally. But there is no contradiction in stones not having vision. But we do say that a man is blind, and that it is natural for a man to see, and therefore blindness is a privation of what ought to be. So one who holds that declaring that something can be is the same as saying that it can not be simultaneously, professes the same contradiction as one would if he held that sight and blindness were one and the same, or that there is no difference between seeing and not seeing. And this would be to deny any contradiction by affirming opposites as though they were the same. To deny these principles of non-contradiction would be to deny the existence of all knowledge, since that which comes first cannot be preceded by whatever follows from it, and so denying first principles would be to deny whatever comes from them, which is all human knowledge. And to demand their demonstration would be the same as holding that nothing at all could be demonstrated or known, because any demonstration of them would have to precede them. And nothing can precede that which comes first absolutely. And since all knowledge proceeds from them, then that knowledge would be eliminated as well. So to demand their demonstration would be to eliminate those propositions which must be demonstrated by them, because whenever someone proposes certain principles as true, the conclusions from those principles must be shown not to conflict with the very first principles, in order that their validity may be confirmed. Therefore, denying these first principles is to deny the possibility of demonstrating anything at all. To paraphrase the philosopher, anyone who would hold otherwise would be no better than a mere plant, which possesses no knowledge whatsoever, because one would deny the very possibility of knowledge by rejecting the only means to its acquisition and verification. It would be like maintaining that since one did not choose his own conception and birth, then he was neither conceived nor born, as though one's own choice must precede his very existence. How these propositions figure into our everyday dealings with the realities which surround us, we shall take up in the succeeding presentations. This is the end of Part 1.